everybody and welcome to Flock Talk. Today we're going to be doing a really quick training tutorial on how to teach your bird to weave. Good girl! So this trick was a really quick and easy one. It only took about 3 or 4 sessions to really get her fully understanding the concept, and that was not only having her going straight through, but also turning around and going back through all of the posts. Now for this tutorial, obviously you do need some props. I didn't go out and buy mine, I actually just made my own because it's really hard to come by props for itty bitty sized birds. If you've got larger birds, you might get lucky and find something in your stores around you, but unfortunately for me, little bird props are kind of hard to come by. So all I did was take a little bit of a suction cup, cut a little X in it, dug a small hole, and this is a little birchwood stick that came right out of one of the toys that Zevie had previously destroyed. So I just kind of ground down the edge so it was a little pointier and stabbed it straight into the suction cup, and that is how I made the props for this tutorial. One of the things we're going to want to do right off the bat here is make sure that the bird is comfortable interacting with these props. You're going to want to lay them around their environment for the first few days, or hit your bird eating treats around them, or all sorts of things that are going to allow the birds to be comfortable when they're interacting with these props. Because if you go to start training this trick and your bird is terrified of the props that you're using, it's going to make this process be a whole lot more difficult to do and take a whole lot longer, because you're not only battling them trying to figure out what you want from them, but you're also battling that initial fear of the things that they're having to interact with. So by taking this time to just set things aside and do this little preemptive training of getting the bird eating treats around them, you're going to eliminate a lot of trouble and a lot of stress from this process. So this is a really simple trick to teach. It's basically just getting them to weave in and out of these branches, and as you can see at this point, Zeve's basically already fully caught on. But all you're going to want to do initially is slowly guide your bird in and out of these little branches. Some birds might catch on right away and run right through it, no problem. Others might need a little bit more guidance, like this, where I'm using my finger to slowly, almost bribe, but not quite bribe, Zevie to go from one side of the post to the other. And this is going to help her start to understand the main basis of this process. Initially, you're going to want to be rewarding them after they walk through the first set. So they're going to walk between 2 of these posts, give them a treat, walk between the other one, give them a treat. Just because that helps break down this into many, many more steps. Because the more steps you have, the easier it is to understand, because the more clearer your communication is going to be. Now, some birds may be really speedy and jump right through, but it's important to start slow and then slowly figure out what pace your bird wants to move at. So once you've got your bird kind of reliably going through and following your fingers, what you can start to do is ease off your hand quite a bit. So where we've left off is Zevie kind of knows to run in and out of these branches pretty easily. But obviously, I don't really want my hand to be what she's following, because that's all she's basically learned at this point, is that following my hand gets her the treat. And I want to break this down just a little bit more so I don't have to have my hand in this trick at all. I want to be able to have my hand at one side of the branches so that way she will be able to weave through them without a second thought. So what I'm going to start to do here is just slowly sway my hand from side to side while staying on my side of the branches. So Zeve's still sort of following me to get through these posts, but I'm not quite as much getting her to follow my hand directly. She's just generally following the gesture that I'm making to know to go from one side of the post to the other by weaving in and out. And what I'm going to slowly do here is make that hand motion smaller and smaller throughout this process. And what we can see happening here is a little bit of confusion. I had to put Zevie back twice because I had made my hand movements too small and she didn't know exactly what I wanted her to do. And the easiest solution for that was for me to just make my hand movements bigger for her to understand. This is going to happen a lot throughout this process, and making these mistakes is absolutely crucial to your bird understanding what's going to happen, because making mistakes is what helps them discriminate between what you want and what you don't. They need to know what's going to earn them a treat, and they're going to try all sorts of things to understand exactly what you want. And understanding exactly what you want is very critical here. And that's why every time I train this process, I'm only going to reward her if she goes through from the left side and then the right. Because if I start letting her go from the right then the left, or walk in circles, or do whatever weird pattern she wants to do, it's going to get really confusing for her. She's not going to know exactly what I want. So by me sitting here and narrowing it down and saying I want you to enter the first post from the left and then the second one's from the right and nothing else, that is one simple option she has to follow, and that is one simple movement I need to teach her to do. So that one very precise thing is what's going to actually make this easier for her. even though it may seem like, hey, if I just let them do whatever, they can enter it from whatever side, it'll be easier that way. It's really not, because you're asking them to have thousands of different possibilities to go between these branches, and for some reason all of them are right. And it's going to be really confusing for them to learn that when they're just being introduced to this concept. So keep what you want from them very specific. You want them to enter from one side and exit from another. Keep it as one option, they have one thing to do, and that is it for right now. You can loosen it up as you want to go, but for right now, keep it pretty precise. So once your bird is able to go through these posts on one direction, quick and easy, your hand movements are really small, I decided to take this to another level. You don't necessarily have to, but I wanted to teach ZB how to turn around and walk back through them so I could make her just keep going back and forth between these 3 branches. So what I'm basically just going to do, and was something that ZB actually struggled quite a bit with, was making her do that 180-degree turn and go back. And so because she struggled so much with learning how to turn around, I'm gonna start her off in that position every time, because that way that is the motion she is repeating the most, and that is the motion she's gonna then try to remember the most, because I'm making her do it over and over and over at the beginning of every single time. So what I'm also gonna focus in on here is teaching ZB to go back away from me, because although it seems like a pretty simple concept, having them go towards us and then it's the exact same thing, they're just going away from us, it can get quite confusing, because for some birds running towards their human is a lot easier than getting them to run away from you. So because of the way I had these posts positioned, I took a little bit of extra time to guide ZB back away from me through the branches, and I just repeated this process over and over the exact same way that I would have taught her to move towards me in the first place. So ZB did struggle with this a little bit, just because she didn't really like running away from me all too much. But in the end, we did end up getting there. I did the same process as before by getting her to follow my hand very liberally all the way through to the end, and then easing it off to the point where I could just tap the other side or gently sway my hand. And once I saw that she had moving away from me down just as well as she had moving towards me, I then incorporated that turnaround that I had her doing at the very beginning in with moving forwards, turning around, and going back. So she had a little bits of confusion here and there throughout this process, where she'd go through, stop and kind of look around and not know what I wanted, and then kind of go back, but she'd go back the wrong way. So it was just a matter of going through this process and actually watching the way that I move my hands, as I found one of the easiest ways to get ZB to turn around the post that I wanted her to was to actually almost guide her with my hand as I pulled it away to swing back towards the other side. So what I started doing here was I'd actually get her to follow my hand through, she'd walk away from me, and then the way that I would swing my hand back around her would be the way that would teach her to turn around and come back at me. So that swinging motion of my hand was basically all that it took for ZB to fully understand that that was the way I wanted her to go. That simple change in the way that I was moving myself made the communication that much clearer for her and made her be able to catch on to this 1,000 times faster. She went from kind of stumbling around, kind of looking at me confusedly, to, okay, this is the way your hand's moving, this is the way I gotta move. And it didn't take very much time after that for me just to be able to tap my hand on either side and fully get her running back and forth as many times as I asked for it. And that's a really simple thing that solved a major problem I was having. I spent a good 5 minutes just sitting with her, not understanding why she couldn't figure out to turn around and come back at me. And just figuring out that if I moved my hand this way, it made her come back. That solved all of that time of sitting there getting confused and even a little bit frustrated, and that it solved it all. So just keep in mind when you're doing things like this to keep an eye on yourself, because although your bird isn't understanding, doesn't necessarily mean that your bird is the problem or your bird is stupid or all these comments I often hear. Often there's things that you can be doing and things that you can be changing that are as small as the way that you're pulling your hand away that are getting your bird to understand this process that much faster. So if you notice your bird having these struggles and you notice them falling back and feeling like they're not making progress, break it down, take a look at what you're doing and the way you're holding yourself, and see if there's anything you can be doing to make this process move that much smoother and that much quicker. Because I bet you there's almost always something you can change that can make the communication just that little bit clearer. Alright, so that about does it for this trick. Like I said, really quick, really easy. It's a lot of just the same thing over and over and over again, moving really slowly to make sure that they're understanding every step of the way. You can add as many posts as you'd like, or have even less if you so choose, but that about does it. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoy this training tutorial. I'm sorry that I was gone for 2 months again. I ended up moving houses and that kind of put a bit of a pause on things. But we're back up and running. Things are going to be infrequent still, but I'm still doing my best to make tutorials coming out for you guys. One I've got in the works right now is actually harness training, so I hope you guys will be looking forward to that. I know quite a few of you have been asking for it. But that's going to do it for today, so thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!